What's up, Yang Gang? So we are here today with Quintus Jett, and if I'm not mistaken, you are a Scarlet Knight. Is that correct?
Well, yeah, I used to work at Rutgers. Yeah.
Awesome, awesome. So, you know, for those who don't know who you are, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Wow. Wow. So I've been involved in the Yang Gang since March. Um, I have a PhD in organizations, uh, mostly in the field of like strategy and operations and innovation. And so what I've been doing the past probably 5 years is applying strategy and innovation to public service and to volunteering. And I've been doing that within Yang Gang.
Wow, that sounds like way over my head. if, if you were to break that down for a country boy, what would you say?
Uh, I deal with how to organize and get things done, especially when it's something like new. Like in the presidential campaign are really pretty complicated because it's about different states. Each state is different with its own rules, different kinds of people living within each state. And so pretty much you have to from scratch figure out how to do something for the first time every time you run for president. Um, or trying to think of another example. Might be like if kind of like if you're making a meal from scratch, like for the first time. That's the kind of things that I kind of deal with. Like, how do you, for the first time, get people together? Oftentimes, when people don't even know each other, how do you get people together to get something done?
So see, now that is an analogy that I can understand. When you broke it down to food, I can understand food because I like to eat for sure. But that sounds like it makes you really perfect for the Yang Gang, especially I mean, because it is so new and it is such finally we had this person who was trying to implement this humanity first point of view for the country, and that makes you perfect for this.
Well, yeah, it's been really exciting because that's who Yang Gang is in the big picture. Usually, when someone runs for president, they have a official campaign, and political campaigns are usually very top down. They're always trying to control like what people are doing, but for a campaign like this that didn't have very many staff or much money in the beginning, they kind of depended on its supporters to get together ourselves. And
Mm-hmm.
that's what's been happening. So Gang Gang, we've been basically like an auxiliary, like the cavalry for the formal campaign this entire time.
Right, and it's you're exactly right. It has been such a grassroots effort, and you know to see it evolve the way it did was pretty incredible. I was out in Portland and I was in Detroit, and I mean we've been all over the place. And it's been incredible to see the spark that has just literally been, like you said, the cavalry for this campaign. And I kind of feel like, somewhere along the way we got off of that, or he got off of that, or something happened and something changed, and it wasn't as dynamic as it was, when it was first exploding. Can you speak to that?
Oh yeah, yeah. So part of what was going on is that um, it all started when we got money. The campaign got money. The campaign didn't really have real money until maybe like September, in part because it wasn't really asking for money like in the beginning, like maybe I'm talking like maybe like February, March of last year. Then they learned how to ask for money, but they weren't consistent with it. But once the money came to the campaign, I think is kind of where the problems happened. Because the campaign itself was very, they had a certain model in their head about how to run things. And so in a way, the campaign really wasn't very equipped and knew how to tap in to the talents that we had. So in that sense, the campaign never knew how to do that. It just became more obvious that they didn't know how to do that once they had money.
Yeah, it's crazy because I kind of feel like, I don't know, man. Andrew had this and still does, has this magic at his hands called the Yang Gang.
Mm-hmm.
If he would just dispense with all that other crap and just use the Yang Gang and use the talents that we have, and I mean, because you had like MC Jin and Chef Zoo and comedians and Dave Chappelle and I mean, man, if we could have just, I don't know, just use that creativity that we all had, and we were on a grassroots level, but I kind of feel like he should have used it.
Yeah, well, that's the thing. I mean, he's pointed out, is that it's really tough. He has said it's tough being the candidate because you're spending so much energy being the candidate. You're not really managing, you're not able to manage the campaign. The part that is exciting, though, is what you're talking about is happening right now. Now that the campaign is suspended, there's this unleashing of creativity that is happening, an additional one, because we've always been doing it, but even more so now. There's a lot going on in Yang Gang right now.
Yes, and I'm so glad that you brought that up because I've seen, it's almost like this reignition of the original, of how we were back in the beginning.
Yeah.
It's a reigniting of this fire and this desire to see change. And like, if I'm not mistaken, you're trying to put together some efforts in South Carolina, right?
Yes, and in fact, what's sort of funny is it's not so much that I'm putting them together. I'm just discovering the efforts that are already happening and reaching out to them and connecting with them. And we're all connecting, all of us together in doing this. I actually have another analogy or metaphor. So basically, trying to think like, I'll use like what, sports, basketball, football.
I'm a diehard Hornets fan, diehard Panthers fan.
Okay, actually I'll use football just because it's more complex. So okay, football. Imagine if you got a bunch of people who didn't know each other, who never played football before. You give them a ball and you ask them to play. What do you think is going to happen?
Oh, it's going to be a mess. It's going to look more like rugby.
Right. So that's kind of how, like, in some ways, a little bit how we were at the very beginning. Like, we didn't know each other. We didn't know this political game, that kind of stuff. You can think of another level. Imagine if you have a bunch of people, they sort of know what they know the game. They know the game pretty well, and they played so enough to be able to say, hey, this is my position. Like, people know what the positions are, but they still don't know each other, but they know the game. That's where most campaigns are. What's interesting about us as Yang Gang, we're able to almost leapfrog to the third level. The third level is we know each other, and we know not just the game, but we know how each other plays. So it's like, if you and I are on the same team, we know each other and we played together before. I know exactly how you think and you know how I think, and we can just do things quick and well. Wow. That is where we are now at Yang Gang.
That's pretty exciting to think about, I just, and me and my wife have been talking about this. It's like we're kind of like, what's the 1, 2, 3 of where do we go from here? What should we as the Yang Gang stay focused on?
All right, let me try and come up with it. So number one, we're already doing. Still vote for Yang in the primary. That's number one. I'd say number two is pay attention to timetable. So Andrew has said that he'll have an announcement within the next 2 to 6 weeks about his next plans. We should take that seriously. So in other words, what we're focused on now is, still voting for Yang. So voting for Yang ourselves in the primary, and then after we've done that, get other people to vote for him, right? So we're still in the game, but understand that these circumstances today will change very quickly. There's a lot going on out there. We have Bernie Sanders has a great large organization, and that's growing. Bloomberg is coming in, and that has all these unpredictable effects. So we just have to know that we need to be present, and we need to engage in yanging the primary, but know that how we're approaching yanging the primary could be different within about 2 weeks.
Right. And I kind of feel like, it's like you said, it's ever evolving, and it's a very fluid situation, and a lot is going to depend. Yes. And, I feel like we should still be donating to the campaign, because regardless, win, lose, or draw, that money's going to roll over to the next time. That's not going in Andrew's pocket. It's not, it's not like he has access to all, to the money that we're donating. And y'all can do that through the blue link that you will see in the description of this video. If you can donate to Andrew Yang's campaign, by all means, please keep donating, Yang Gang, because we have to set up for the long haul. We have to not only prepare for our short, it's kind of like a game of chess. I love chess, and it's a beautiful, to me, it's a beautiful game. And you have to look at the immediate, but you also have to set up for the long game. You have to, where is the end game? And the end game is ultimately moving this humanity first vision forward. This is much bigger than Andrew Yang, him as a person. This is a movement that is happening and is starting to sweep the country. It begins with us, the Yang Gang. And we're like this fire, and it's starting to catch hold, and we need to keep pushing that vision and keep moving forward. And we are definitely setting up for 2024, if nothing else.
Yeah, there's a good chance this will play out like actually before that. So actually there is someone like in the research world studied master chess players. And one of the things he found was that it's not so much that chess players move 4 or 5 steps ahead. It's more like they have 2 phases or 2 modes. The first mode in the beginning, it's a little bit defensive. Like they want to keep their options open, want to lose. So in a way, it's almost like whenever Andrew was on the debate stage, I know we as Yang Gang wanted him to knock it out of the park. But what I was focused on in those early debates is, please don't mess up. Please don't mess up. Because if you mess up on that stage, especially in the beginning, that could have taken him out. So first mode is just defensive, keep your options open. You want it, but you're still thinking about winning, but you're just, you just don't want to be taken out. But then the second phase is when you are close enough to victory. You have a quick path to the king right there. Then you become super assertive because there's a path, it's right there, go get it. And I think that's something that I think this community, I think we know each other enough that, the first thing that happened after the campaign suspended is we don't die. Number one, resilient, we don't die. We make sure we're doing things. And so really by doing this, the voting, we're actually buying ourselves time, room to maneuver, room to gather ourselves and reconnect with each other so that when the next phase, the next target comes clear, we'll be able to move very, very quickly.
Something I want to talk about for a second is, you mentioned Mike Bloomberg. And, I'm hearing all these comments that are coming out of the things that he said. And to me, they're just horrible, horrible things. And it makes me want, how the hell is this guy, Mike Bloomberg, polling so high? And a guy like Andrew Yang, who is trying to push this humanity first vision forward, like, how is he not getting way more run than this fucking billionaire who's buying his way into the election?
Well, all right. So here's the Yeah, because I don't know. I've learned to just like kind of keep it 100 with the Yang Gang. So I mean, part of what's going on with this is that, well, one, his marketing team is very, very, very good. So you can have money, but how do you spend it, right? So, so there's that, and then second is uh, there are different sides to Mike Bloomberg. I mean, his climate change, like what he did for in terms of climate change kinds of things in New York City, was actually top notch. And so it's the thing about him seems to be he's a very effective executive, whether his goals are good, bad, or ugly. And so you can find some good, you can find some bad, and you can find some ugly, and then stop and frisk falls into the ugly.
Man, and he is, to me, he's the exact same as Donald Trump. I mean, as far as like just the way and I kind of feel like, when you are that uber rich, you're gonna have some of that, and it's just like this complete disconnect, man.
Well, I mean, another way to put it, maybe I'm just like, gonna be a little cynical. So it's like, so my family, my my father was born in Arkansas. My mom was born in Alabama during segregation, and there's traces back to slavery. So at the end of the day, I'm also looking at it like some of the founders talked freedom and owned slaves. We had all this other stuff, and so in a way, when it comes to stop and frisk, as bad as it is, throughout most of my life, I have to worry about any city I'm at. you know, I mean, this is happening. The risk of this happening as a Black person can happen anywhere. So in a way, there's almost like a pragmatic sense to me. It's like, I mean, as far as I'm concerned, it's like it's messed up, but sometimes it's better to know. I almost rather deal with someone who I know the racial bias than someone whose I don't.
Yeah, it's kind of like with the devil
You
you know and the devil you don't know. Which do you choose? But I mean, oh gosh,
It's tough, but again, I think getting to the where I go to here from here though, um, in the short term, I'm working with like other Yang Gang in terms of Nevada, and even though that's a very short time frame, and we're starting to South Carolina, but beyond that, there's some unfinished business, I think, in terms of the South. That the campaign, when it was activated, it really focused on the early states, and I think there's a real good case to be made that we should be bringing the message all over the South.
you are so right, because as you know, I'm from North Carolina, and I said the amount of broke folk vote in North Carolina, South Carolina, and all these southern states is incredible. I mean, it is hard to live in the South because nobody has any money, man. I mean, the poor communities in the South have just been ravaged, and it's ugly. And man, there is, and that's kind of, man, I don't know. I feel like Andrew should have focused on the broke folk vote more, and I feel like he will. It's like you said, there's some unfinished business. The broke folk vote is white communities, Black communities. It's what y'all got to understand is this is a rich poor issue, y'all, and this is something that they've kept us broke up into camps for so long with the media that it's unreal. It's time we realize that it's a money thing more than anything else. And if we could put $1,000 a month disposable income into these families' hands, oh my gosh, it would literally revolutionize this country.
I actually have a story for you. So I was doing some work that brought me to a place called Waycross, Georgia. And so it's like about an hour and a half drive from Jacksonville into Georgia. So we were there doing some work, and on my way out, I stopped at fast food. And and it costs about $7. And so I'm pulling out my cash, and the cashier says something like, sorry, I can't handle your money. And I was like, what? I mean, did he really compute? And the thing is, the cashier was like a young white kid, but I knew it wasn't racial because I could feel his discomfort of having to do this. And basically the real reason was he's like, well, I'm not allowed to handle cash. I have to get my manager to handle that. So he has to stop and go get his manager, who comes back with the key to open the register to do a transaction for $7.
Wow.
And I'm just like, what the heck is that? And I talked to the friend who was like from there. I'm like, what's up with that? And he described the cycle. You know, in towns like that, a lot of people don't have money. They get hired at jobs that don't pay very much. Some people who, you know, dip in the cash register. Then the people who run the store develop this mistrust. And so, but really, you're going to basically have to have the manager for every cash transaction really? And so that sticks with me, because that's what there's a lot of America that's dealing with this. And usually these areas tend to be rural.
You know what? People don't stop and think, like, what does this all cost on the back end for thousands of companies like you're talking about? And, you know, the cost of not putting money and funds into people's hands is just far greater than giving the people actual money. Because it's like you said, you know, when you're working at a fast food place or something, man, you're not making enough to pay for food, let alone rent or anything else, man. It's crazy. You know, my wife and I were working at Olive Garden as servers before we started our YouTube channel, and we were making $2.13 an hour to be walking billboards for the Olive Garden, plus whatever tips we made. That's what we made. You know, and it's so hard, and it took both of us working all the time, and we weren't even hardly making ends meet. And that's where the struggle comes in. It's not that we're lazy. It's not that we're not hard workers or whatever. It's because, you know, it's just the way everything's set up. It's set up for poor people to stay poor.
And then even like the healthcare, like the way that Andrew Yang talks about healthcare is very different than most of the other Democrats, because he understands that from a business owner standpoint, you have to like pay for healthcare. What a difference it would make if businesses did not have to pay for healthcare, like, you know, in terms of like, you know, yeah, for terms not just like where they can put their money and having to make decisions about full-time, part-time, and all that. But even on the other side, a lot of people get their health care through their employer, which means that if it's a sucky job, you can't, you know, the health care is kind of keeping you there. And then we're also paying for the employer-based health care, like, you know, too. It's like the employer pays something, and then you got to pay something. And so in a way, having a system of healthcare that's sort of funded differently gives us more disposable income too, as well as keeping us all healthy. So yeah, so that's the thing there. In that sense, America wasn't ready for, our political system is not ready for the great key systematic changes that Andrew's been talking about.
I want to talk for a moment about something that came across my desk, I guess, if you will. And it was a study that came out February 14th. And it's where they've been studying instituting a value-added tax. Now, I see it that it has been proposed before. And this is something that really kind of infuriated me. And it kind of like makes a light bulb go off. And, you know, for one, I'm a little bit distrustful of the people who are in charge to start with, because they've been screwing the American people for so many years. You know, and it's almost like a light bulb went off, and I was like, wow, okay, no wonder they're not pushing Andrew Yang any harder. They've been studying this value added tax for quite some time now, and then they just published this thing, you know, where they were talking about it. You know, that would be, to me, that would be the ultimate screwing of the American people, is if they instituted a value added tax and they reaped all the benefits and the American people once again got nothing.
Yeah. Yep. Well, yeah, it's almost like what I liked about this whole freedom dividend too is that all the solutions are always top down. Like either it's tax cuts for the very wealthy and for corporations, or like money sucked up for some big government program that eats lots of, administrative stuff. And so I like the simplicity of it. For once, can you just give everyone a check? Just for once, just let us decide. Some of us, sometimes, you want to, sometimes some people will save Sometimes there's like real things in terms of childcare or parental care, caregiving. Sometimes you want to invest, but for once, why can't you just give the money back to the people?
That would make a
Let's do
lot of
that.
sense to me. You know,
And that's the thing.
it seems like we've
Yeah.
tried a whole lot of other stuff, and you know what's crazy is you were talking about that story, about the restaurant that you stopped at, and
Yeah.
I thought back to like the communities that I grew up in and the areas that I grew up in, areas that I've lived pretty much my whole life, and a lot of the people I know have what's called a hustle, and they not only have jobs, but they hustle. And, it's tough because, those people that I know wouldn't have to hustle if they had this extra $1,000 a month coming in. I feel like it would cut down on crime. It would cut down on so much stuff if you would just put the money into the people's hands.
Well, isn't like Andrew said, like too, about even I know sometimes people say, well, you can't give money without financial education, like literacy things. But this is the thing. If you're giving me financial literacy training and I have no money, it's not going to make sense to me. You know what I mean? I'm not even going to be motivated, right? Whereas if I know that I'm getting $1,000 a month and it's going to keep on coming, now I have to, now let's talk about budgeting and savings and investment. So people need a little cushion, a basic income to even able to, make use of financial literacy. I mean, it's like knowing, it's like, what if you knew how to drive, but you don't have access to a car, I mean,
Right,
so we
exactly.
need both.
It's one thing it's one thing to you know to tell my 4-year-old how to drive, but it's not going to make sense to him because it's just not in his realm. you know
Yeah.
if you're not talking to somebody on their level, then you're not going to be able to communicate with them effectively. It's hard. It's like you said, if you're talking to me about money and I don't ever experience no damn money, what does it matter?
Yeah. And for some reason, I want to, if we're going to talk about like the broke vote, I feel like I want to talk about Walmart for a bit. I feel like it seems to me like a lot of people in the country don't get Walmart and get it. Like, so I used to live for a while in rural New Hampshire, and I got it. It's like sometimes you needed things, you needed like goods, and there was really no place else to go. And sure, yes, Walmart was putting some of these places out of business. And I remember having conversations with people, locals, people who've grown up there, and it's like, how do you feel about that? And it's like that's sort of the dynamic here. It's like Walmart as an entity, that's how they grew all over the place. They're a company that spends its time trying to provide the lowest cost thing for communities where you always have to stretch a dollar. That is really how they've taken off. And sometimes it takes them off into some, some bad places, but that core thing is what really drives Walmart.
And you are so right. Talk about bad places. I mean, Walmart is such, to me, it's such a predatory company because number one, it doesn't pay its employees enough to survive. And then all those employees are then on assistance like food stamps and all this
Exactly.
stuff. And where they're going to go spend that money, they're going to go right to Walmart where they work, where Walmart conveniently gives them a 10% discount. Yay! Spend your food stamps here and get a 10% discount. Awesome. It is doing nothing but keeping broke folk poor. I mean, it's crazy the way that this society has been set up, where like Andrew Yang talks about this winner take all economy. And oh man, can you talk about that winner take all economy for a moment?
Yeah,
Nothing like putting you on the spot.
well, no, I mean, there are different ways, because that's why I'm stuck on the Walmart thing in my head too. But it's almost like there's, okay, I used to teach MBAs. Like I used to teach, like, business school people, and one thing that I noticed is that something happened in the culture of America and business, like during the middle of the 20th century. Because in a way, when you think about like how business can operate, you can run things more effectively, efficiently, and by doing that, you can do like cheaper, better goods for customers. As part of that, you can get more profits for you, the owner, but you can also invest in your people. Somehow, it seemed to me like the past 60 years or so, that other part, like serving people, is not part of the equation. So businesses will become more effective and they'll treat the people like expenses and cut them off. There's no loyalty to people who are working. So all the better efficiencies are for growing your market and taking your profit, and nothing's really for the people. Like that, that's like an afterthought.
That's crazy because I'm originally from Ohio, and when I was young, I can remember like my grandpa worked at Goodyear there in Akron, Ohio, and like the company had all these benefits. It was like, wow, you could work at this company and you could get all this stuff and have all these benefits, and you at the end of your retirement you could have all this money to retire on, and like then Goodyear closed down and all sides closed down and all these companies in Ohio closed down, and it was just like it just ravaged the economy in the Rust Belt, what we call the Rust Belt. And it's only gotten worse because now you see the effects and the ravages of automation and what it's going to do to the economy. Now Walmart has rolled out, all these self-checkouts, where it used to be there was a person and even though that person wasn't making enough to live on, at least they were making something, but now that person's not making anything because, it's Walmart is making you ring up your groceries, bag your groceries. I mean, it's crazy. And now they're even automating away the janitorial jobs. Now they've got robots that just go up and down the aisles, late at night and clean the floors and stuff. So all these jobs are being displaced. All of us right now, I kind of feel like in the generations like Generation X and on down, maybe the next generation will be able to adapt to all the automation that's going on because there will be jobs created and whatnot. But for these next few generations, man, we're going to be wrecked financially if we don't do something, if we don't get ahead of it.
Yeah, I see what you mean. It's like that's something that I think Andrew Yang has done, is he helped clearly explain what's happening. It's like automation is happening. And the truth is, we're not going to stop it. You know, that's not going to happen, you know, because automation can be useful for a lot of things. And so it's going to keep going. So when that happens, there will be displacement of jobs, will be displacement and destruction of career paths that used to exist. And what's going to be replacing them will not necessarily be like, you know, people will not be able to be retrained for a lot of these jobs. So that's like almost like a reality that I think, you know, that Andrew's talked about, that I think our system doesn't really acknowledge. And when you think about the company that creates the automation, they're going to do very well. And those who are that company are going to do very well. But that wealth is a relatively small number of people compared to all the people in the jobs and careers that will be lost. So in that sense, I think that's, I mean, I think Andrew really has really been great. I mean, that's the winner take all, that we're having, like, you know, capitalism and technology coming together and just like destroying things at such a pace economically that we're not able to keep up.
You
And our
know,
political systems are obviously failing with that.
it's crazy that you say that, because I just want to say what I see when capitalism and technology collide, I see Skynet coming. I see Terminator days. That's exactly what I see coming. So y'all can think what you want to, but like, let's advance this a little bit and let's let this play out. So Quintus, I appreciate your time.
Sure.
I want to say one thing. I am extremely jealous of you right now, because you are sitting outside. You know, you've got a short sleeve. Wait, is that a short sleeve shirt that you're wearing there? I mean, that's crazy. I'm sitting here and it has been snowing.
Oh no!
I got up this morning and it has not stopped. It's dropped about 3 or 4 inches already today. I can't even go outside.
Wow.
It's nuts.
Wow.
So I'm very jealous of you. But I want to thank you for coming on the Broke Folk Vote podcast. And I want to let you just give the Yang Gang some closing words, if you would.
I think I'll just say, well, just let's go. I mean, the next 2 weeks are going to be very critical between now and just before Super Tuesday. What we do is going to have a lot of effect, not just in the present, but even like going forward into like whatever like Andrew decides to do next. And so just reach out to each other. And again, the goal is we want to get votes for Andrew Yang, as many as we can. And even though it won't, we shouldn't expect, we're not going to win a state based off of this, but there's a chance that we'll have enough votes that we've accumulated to bring attention. Who ever heard of a candidate if we get 5% and there's no campaign functioning, that is big news. So that's where I think, you know, that's where we should be like the next 2 weeks.
That is awesome. Yang Gang, y'all keep yanging people. Since I found out about Andrew Yang, I have not stopped telling people about him, because his vision for the future is one that we as a society need to grab onto. And I believe that when people find out more about Andrew Yang, they will also see what I believe. And I believe that he is a once-in-a-lifetime candidate. And if we do not step up and take this moment for humanity, then we're going to lose something very, very valuable that I don't believe this country can afford to lose. So Yang Gang, we love you. Thank you. Like, share, subscribe. Donate if you can. See you on the next one.